Hi everybody, this is Hero back with another Dragonflight video, and in this video I want to take a look at arms wear. And I want to begin by talking about some of the exciting changes that are coming to this spec overall, and it has to do with the number of rage generating tools that we have access to. So I just brought a little chart to show you in a bigger blown up picture what it means for us going forward. All of the green circles are abilities that we have access to in the live version, but we usually have to make some choice in order to gain access to them. These all generate rage. The only other way to do it is to charge in or to auto attack, and auto attack being the largest single contributor for any, at least raid boss, rage generation in the entire kit. So we rely heavily on auto attacking to give us the resources to keep pressing our buttons. And here's what's happening. We are now getting access to all of these pieces at the same time. So some of the talents that we would use, things like War Machine, were just not very good. They did help our auto attacks generate more rage, but we usually in a raid setting didn't make use of the second portion. In Mythic Plus it's a little bit different. War Machine was actually reasonable, but there are other options in our current talent tree that outclassed War Machine, so taking it was kind of a mistake. Same too with Skull Splitter, which is in the same row. In single target scenarios, maybe if you're playing Venthyr early on in Castle Nathria, Skull Splitter was pretty good because you could maintain your condemn window, but outside of that, it kind of still fell behind. But now we have access to both. If you go back here, we have Avatar, we have Kyrian Spear, we have the bonus effect from Kyrian Spear, which gives a bit more rage generation. You have Skull Splitter and War Machine. You have Deadly Calm. All of these are accessible to the player, and they were part of the base kit that you had to make choices about. So that's step one of rage generation for Arms Warrior in Dragonflight, is the floor for rage generation has gone up if you want access to these pieces that are from the old system. But then we have access to a bunch of new pieces, 4 that are on the tree, and it's an entirely new way of thinking about Arms Warrior in general, and this is intended by Blizzard. They have talked a little bit about the idea of bleeds being a more significant marker for Arms Warrior, and this is being attended to on the rage generation side as well. Blood Surge is the main feature. Your periodic bleed effects have a chance to grant you 5 rage. Now currently in the base kit you have access to 1 bleed effect baseline, which is our mastery, and that's going to occur every time we press Mortal Strike or Colossus Smash or Cleave on the target. We produce a bleed, and that bleed is scaled by our mastery. What this is saying is now your mastery ticks from your regular rotation have a chance to give you 5 rage. So if Blood Surge remains in this state, it's already going to be a pretty beneficial piece, because almost any rage that we get access to is really good for Arms Warrior. But that's not all. We also get access to Rend, which is now in the main tree, but we've had this as a talent before, and this was a good talent to choose in single target encounters. But now Rend is also going to be scaling our Blood Surge. So that's another bleed. Finally, Thunderous Roar. We had like that old Dragon's Roar idea. This is coming back in a slightly modified form. It's also producing a bleed effect for 9 seconds. So Rend lasts baseline 15, Thunderous Roar lasts 9, and because of our rotation, our mastery bleed, Deep Wounds, is going to last pretty much the whole encounter. So now we have 3 bleeds that are ticking, and as long as these are ticking, we have a chance to gain more rage in these windows. Rend is a rage requirement button, so we can have this up 100% of the time, guaranteeing we have 2 bleeds at all times. Thunderous Roars 45 seconds, and it's a 9-second bleed, so we have this up for less of the time. Maybe I think it's like 15% of an encounter if you don't add anything else. But more than this, Thunderous Aftershocks is also in the game, and this is suggesting that this roar has a knockdown effect, good for Mythic Plus, fine. There's 2 aftershocks that deal 50% of attack power damage, and each aftershock generates 2 additional rage per target hit. So in single target, that's 4 rage. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but these aftershocks are generating more rage for more targets hit. In any cleave, in any AoE, in any council fight, this Dragon's Roar on top of the bleed suddenly is offering you significant gains because of these aftershocks. So if you had 5 targets, that's 20 rage, right? Not bad. Not bad to gain a little spender out of pressing this button. But the bleed part is what really interests me, and there's a couple other features. Skull Splitter can be upgraded to include Fracture, and this will make our 2 main bleeds that are up all the time tick faster, 200% faster. What that means essentially is you are getting 2 times the rage, the potential for rage generation within that window. So every 24 seconds you're doubling Blood Surge's effectiveness for I forget how long. I'm not sure if this has got to have some cap to it, the 200% faster, but maybe it doesn't. I'm sure they'll have to fix this. So in other words, you could pandemic your rend, and if it's snapshotted the 200%, your next rend and your next deep wounds would continue to expire. My guess is that as soon as you press rend again, or it falls off, then the 200% effect is gone. But nevertheless, every 24 seconds, if you wanted it, you gain access not only to more rage, but whatever bleeds are on your target are also going to give you Blood Surge a bit more. Pretty cool. Finally, and I think this is probably one of the more significant pieces here, Deep Wounds, Rend, and Thunderous Roar bleed effects last 6 seconds longer. So in the case of Thunderous Roar, that's close to double the length of this bleed. Rend, it's pretty solid, so it takes us to 21 seconds. And then it's slightly less significant overall for our Deep Wounds, but nevertheless still gives you a better window there. What Bloodletting says is essentially you have to refresh Rend less often, and you will guaranteed to be proccing Blood Surge for more consistently. Anyways, I just thought I would note that kind of stuff off the bat. Let's make sure I haven't missed any. Oh, yeah, there's a couple more. Excuse me. These ones are also really valuable. Overwhelming Rage, extending the cap on our rage, really significant. And Frothing Berserker is also excellent. Actually, in some ways, Frothing Berserker, depending on how they scale it, might be completely overpowered. Think about this. Your abilities that cost rage have a 20% chance to immediately refund 20% of the rage spent. If you cast a sudden death execute, if you cast execute in general, you're spending 40 rage. Will that proc Frothing Berserker? Even if you just press execute. With arms, you get the talent that says when your execute does not get consumed, you have 20% of the rage refunded. So this is that kind of similar effect, but on every single rage spender. So Mortal Strike, Cleave, Execute, Slam, all of them are going to get Whirlwind if you want, 35 Whirlwind or some really big storm. Pressing in an execute window, execute over and over again, will proc Frothing Berserker pretty significantly. And staying in execute is really strong for Arms Warrior, as we know. So if they keep the tuning and the scaling right, this is a lot of extra rage that you can expect to gain over the course of a fight. So I'm encouraged. Just on paper, if you give Arms access to all of these pieces at the same time, all of these rage generating tools, and then you have to tune the game around their execute, they're going to be doing amazing work, especially I think on single target, because in AoE everything gets a little wonky depending on the scaling of the size. But one of the problems with Arms, of course, is It's really a profile built for 2-target cleave with sweeping strikes. So if it's really good in single target, meaning if it has the rage to be able to continually press Mortal Strike and slam as a filler, or really to be able to press Mortal Strike and execute, it's going to be a monster. And there's a couple of builds here that give us access to just that. There are the Mortal Strike type of ideas, where you have old legendary items. You have things like Battle Lord coming back, right? You have, I guess you could take Unhinged, but Unhinged was kind of more of a PvP idea. But that's only because you had to choose between Unhinged and things like Battle Lord. But you have other scalers for Mortal Strike damage. Here you have, I believe, Exhilarating Blows, giving Mortal Strike an instant chance to reset itself. So if they're giving you lots of opportunities to press Mortal Strike, you need the rage in order to press it. Historically, we've had to get 2 charges with Dreadnought in order to keep pressing Overpower to fill in the gaps when we didn't have rage generation. Or we'd have to charge weave. So our auto attack goes off, we hit Mortal Strike, we run out, charge back in to get a little bit more rage. I think you're going to be less rage starved in that sense. And so putting together a lot of these pieces, I mean, Fatality looks amazing. This is an ability that says when you finally get to the execute phase, all the Mortal Strikes you cast amplify your damage, which is cool. You can also get the Venthyr effect here, Punishment, or Exploit the Weakness, which is probably just better depending on the encounter, but at least Punishment is here for anything where you have a target that is supposed to remain at a high HP level if they make that kind of a boss. And so you're killing them at 80% above 80% for a long time. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I'm excited, guys. Forget about the builds. There's lots of cool builds here. There's AoE builds with Super Cleave and insane Thunderclap synergies with Avatar and Unstoppable Force. There's single target builds where you do all kinds of Mortal Strike stuff and you're just resetting it, as I mentioned. There's bleed builds where you're trying to keep your bleeds up and drain them down. There are builds that focus a little bit more on just slam damage. There's bursty builds like Super Colossus Smash with Skull Banners. You have anger management if you want it to cool down Blade Storm, so you can put Blade Storm together. You have this new idea of arms actually being a warrior that's making selections or choices of the type of weapon they want to use, which I think is excellent. Blunt versus sharpen. They need to give you back this kind of flavor, and it looks like they're trying to do that. So, yeah, you have whirlwind builds with Merciless Bone Grinder, Storm of Swords, Fervor in Battle, collateral damage, Blade Storm plus the slam stuff. It's looking pretty good on the ability side. I think if they ship this as is, ARMS has a lot of ideas to work with for both their primary niche, which is 2-target cleave, and for single target with a lot of intense Mortal Strike resets or giant AoE stuff with your Blade Storms, Storm of Swords, Whirlwind stuff. That's all great, but the thing on top is all this rage generation, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. I really hope they leave a lot of these ideas in here. It will likely make Arms Warrior kind of GCD capped, but overall it'll be great for the spec. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.